want to reduce something to a score, but you gave this game a 10 out of 10 on GameSpot, which means it is essential.
It's an essential game.
So if you're watching this or somehow coming across the video, you should play Super Mario Odyssey if you have any passing interest in video games on Nintendo Switch. And if you have a Switch, walk me through it. Why is this such a great 3D platformer when Mario is known for these with Super Mario 64, Super Mario Galaxy games, Super Mario Sunshine, even though I don't really like that game.
Well, it's very different from all those games, despite sort of having the same general 3D platformer premise. More than anything, Super Mario Odyssey is a playground for discovery, and the whole deal is like you're collecting moons, and in the past maybe you would set out in certain levels to like collect a star, and you get sent back to the beginning. Like this game, like you find one moon, you continue to the next one, and if you're really aware of what you're doing and you're really aware of what Mario is capable of, and that includes how he can use his environments and enemies to his advantage, you can find a moon and thus feel rewarded like every other minute. And when you're doing that, you're also going through like these environments that seem somewhat small like on paper, but once you're actually moving and shaking within them, there's so much to see and do, and it just feels sort of like a never-ending like hunt for these things and discovery for what the game has that maybe you didn't see immediately.
This game is just like playing with your endorphins as you're getting like a moon or coins or purple coins or finding some sort of secret every like 30 seconds, I feel.
Right, and you're using that to go to open up new worlds, to get a new outfit for Mario, Sorry.
No, you go. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was to say, but that endorphin, like,
fuck, I didn't know that was a moon.
Dude, there are so many moons.
836.
Like you just can't even begin to spoil it. Like, what I was gonna say is that not that it's a bad thing, but like as the game progresses and you get past that main quest, like those endorphins are still there, but like you find yourself like really kind of working a lot more harder to get these moons. Like they
do open up a new set of moons, and they literally tell you where they are.
Yeah.
But then it's like after that, which is sort of the post game, and then the real post game.
Yeah, because you could beat the game with what is it, 250 moons?
No,
less than that.
Sorry,
I think it's like 80 or 90 is the minimum. Like someone did a speed run recently in like 80 something minutes, and I think they had about 90 moons.
Oh damn!
I did it at like
80
minutes.
minutes.
Or something like
Shit,
that.
I think I have more than that. I'm only on the Snow Kingdom right now.
Yeah, I mean,
because you can have more than that.
Yeah,
right?
so the game basically shows you like, okay, we need this many moons to power your ship to get to the next kingdom, and once you visit every kingdom, then you kind of get to the end, and you can get there pretty quickly if you just sort of follow the required moon counts and then proceed to your next step. But I beat the game with like 150 moons, and there were about 700 left for me to find. I'm currently at 520-ish, and that's sort of like the last big milestone the game sets for you is 500. So I'm beyond that at this point, but I'm still enjoying the game, and I'm still playing it every now and then. I did put in like 40 to 50 hours in just like 4 days or something like that, 3 or 4 days. So it was kind of a lot for a minute, but it says a lot that I can keep going back to this game and I don't really tire of it.
Yeah, I think our friend over at Giant Bomb, Dan Reichert, found all the moons correct.
Well, friend, I guess, but yeah.
You're just jealous.
Yeah, he went pretty crazy on this game.
Ham.
That's very like him to do that. So let me ask you this: before you guys had finished, or at least before you had gotten up to like the 600 like 400 or something moons, you were saying a lot of it is easy. Maybe that's beside the point, but I do want to talk about the difficulty because I am finding it is very easy overall, and I'm not like especially great at platformers. I'm pretty decent at this game, but it's very inventive. It's very creative. It just kind of like plays with your imagination and what you can think of these environments. But
that's the challenge,
right? And also, but there are some platforming parts where you're going through those cap doors and then getting on those rockets to launch into space for those harder platforming sections. Did you feel the difficulty was like well tailored throughout?
Yeah, and I actually think there's a much bigger discussion that we should have here, which is sort of the opposite of what I think everyone was talking about a couple weeks ago. Like, difficult games are great in their own way. Well, so are games that are very forgiving and easy in a sense. Like, I think Mario is the perfect argument for why both types of games can exist. Like, even if you fail in the sections that you're talking about, you're not actually losing much except for the time you spent to die. Like
10 coins you can easily get back.
Yeah, like the coins are so easy to get. And even when you run out of coins in total, like there's no such thing as a game over in this screen. That doesn't exist. There's no one-up mushroom. There's no lives, as it were. Like this has abandoned anything that made Mario sort of like if you can call it that, like a threatening experience where you can put so much time and energy into something and then not get there and have to start a whole kingdom or world over and just feel like, man, that's really frustrating. Does that mean this game is bad because it's easy? I would say no, unless you need to prove something or you can only enjoy difficult games. Like, this game can be surprisingly difficult when it comes to the puzzle solving, which is really how you use Mario and the environment to acquire the moon that you can see, but you're like, how the hell do I get to it? So it can be surprisingly challenging in those ways. Towards the very end of the game, you do unlock some stuff that is sort of like a gauntlet where if you die, there's no checkpoint, you have to go back to the beginning, and that takes the form of a boss rush and is a really difficult series of platforming sections. And in that sense, it seems to harken back to something like Mario 64, where it is so much about the platforming and really a test of your skill. This is more a test of your strategizing and execution in so many ways.
And even like your ability to switch up your perspective, which I think kind of helps in this game.
Yeah. There are certain times where it helps to really like line it up in like a 2D perspective, and not just the retro sections, but like even when 3D platforming, or go to a top-down perspective as well. And even just challenging yourself to always change the camera angle and your perspective, because that's the only way you can find all the moons. And that's the only way towards the end of the game that you can really make progress. But that also makes these seemingly small open worlds that much more interesting, because no matter where you look, you will ultimately be facing something that is worth seeking.
And coming back with a different perspective. Like, a lot of times I've run into that where like I've spent a lot of time on a little mini game. Mike, you saw me battling one the other day, and it's forgiving in the sense where it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna come back because there's so much to do in this playground as a whole that I have no problem walking away from things. And that's where the challenge is bearable in my perspective, where it's just like, I'll come back. It's not a problem. There's so much going on. Yeah. I can get more moons somewhere else.
But you can pretty much get any moon right from the start if you know where it is and how to like handle your environment. Mario's outfits don't give him any special powers. It's the enemies he capture, and they're limited to these environments, and you can't take them out. So you've got all the tools you need to get the moons, pretty much, unless I'm forgetting something.
I would say like some of the worlds you would have to defeat a specific boss to like open up new areas to moons, like
something like that.
Ability wise, you're right. I don't think there's anything. Speaking of abilities and whatnot, so he's got a pretty diverse skill set in this game. One thing that people were worried about was like maybe a reliance on motion controls. Was that the case here? Did you think it was entirely optional?
I think that's been blown out of proportion after the review. There's a couple moves, because Mario can throw his hat, obviously. He can throw his hat in a few different ways. Some of those extra ways you can manage through button presses. Other ones you have to use motion controls. In handheld mode, throwing your hat up or down isn't great, and I don't even know if it works, to be honest with you. I haven't been able to do it properly, mostly because I don't want to like fling my entire Switch up and down, holding it by the controllers. But the only times where I had to do that was when it was like a couple moons, where it was like, okay, clearly I need to shake to get my hat up there because I can't jump that high. So I'd pop the Joy-Cons off my Switch and just did it and put them back on. It was like 20 seconds over and done with. If you have a Pro Controller, you can do everything that you could with the Joy-Cons. So yeah, there are a couple force motion controls things in here. That's not great. Like, no one loves to be forced to do that, especially when it seems like they probably could have found a way to do it with buttons. But it's certainly not like an issue.
No. Well, there are some... the spin attack, so if you're using the Joy-Cons, you flick both Joy-Cons to either side simultaneously. But if you're playing on handheld, or even on a regular controller, you could just also rotate the left stick before you do it. Kind of like in the older Zelda 3D games, you could either charge with B or spin the stick, and that works.
With a Pro Controller, it feels super natural because you basically just like, you let go of one side of it, hold to the other handle, and just sort of flick your wrist. It feels like you're throwing a freaking hat, in a sense.
And so, in that respect, it is... a split second as far as the timing, right? Like, it is feasibly quicker to do this than it is to do that spin move.
Right.
Because that spin move where the hat circles you is actually pretty vital, like, for a lot of scenarios as far as, like, protection.
Helpful.
Sure.
Vital is taking it too far because the game never requires it of you. It presents it as, like, an efficiency thing.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say with, like, that moon that you were talking about that you couldn't get with the hat throw.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, like, there is always a way around that. always. Like I've never had the need where it's like I cannot get here or grab this without flicking my head.
There are definitely a couple moons where
Really?
you
You had
can
that-
only do that.
You had that problem where
It's
like
confirmed. Yeah, no, it's a thing. It's
Oh,
not just
fuck.
yeah.
To do the spin move?
no, the half throw up.
And there's
gosh,
another one
like
like the frog. If you shake the controller, the frog does an extra flip and will jump a little bit higher.
Same
and
with
there's
the
a moon
Goombas,
in-
too.
There's a moon in the
Sure.
Cap Kingdom that you can't get unless you do that.
What? Can you describe that? That's
I
crazy.
can't. There's also there's also the moon. I think it's in the Wooded Kingdom where there's these. It's called a strange neighborhood, and the platforms are moving like apartments, and you have to go back and stack all the Goombas. I don't think you can make some of those jumps without shaking it, because the Goombas jump much higher when you shake
Right.
it as opposed to just the hop. So I could definitely see. The moon I'm thinking of particularly, maybe it's ringing a bell with other people. I don't think I could have done it without the shake jump with the stacked Goombas. I could be wrong though. But to
Yeah,
your
I
point,
know.
I can see that being the case where there are some moons where you would need.
There's only two that I can really think of where shaking is required. One of them is
Damn.
the Cap Kingdom one, and then there's another one that I forgot. I can't remember where it was, but yeah.
But it is interesting you talk about how this game kind of challenges your imagination in terms of how you see the levels. Because I think Mario Galaxy, when it came out, was much more about those smaller sandboxes and also being kind of creative with how they use 3D.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of like those spherical worlds, and I think both games play with 3D level design in an awesome way. I mean, Mario 64 did, and that's a precedence forever. But I'm not a huge fan of Sunshine. Maybe I need to go back to it. I know that game has a lot of defenders for people who aren't super stoked on it. Just a lot of people like that game, but I love the Mario Galaxy games, and I think this game kind of continues that legacy of 3D Mario's playing with level design in a cool way. To your point, it's very much every time I go into a world, I see it like on an aesthetic level, and then I know there's a ton that's going to unfold before me.
Yeah, I
just
mean,
based
some of
on-
these places have over 100 moons.
Yeah,
Like, maybe just one I can think of, but yeah, like that gets that high.
I mean, I spent like maybe 5 hours in Toast Arena town, or not the town. What was the Desert Kingdom?
yeah.
But with Toast Arena town in it.
Steam Gardens.
Where would you say?
I love that song.
Where
in
would
that
you
area.
say this? I'm not asking you for a definitive ranking or list, but would you
here we
say
go.
so? 3D Mario games: Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and if you want to do like 3D World and 3D Land and factor those in, where does this fit on that list? It's up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's up there. You know, I can only speak to my personal experience, but I find it really hard to compare all those games because they have Mario and they have some other consistent things, but they're all very different at their core. They all offer very different takes on 3D platforming. Again, despite the similarities you see between them, but you know, if you put all of them in front of me right now, I think I'd probably play Mario 64 in this. The Galaxy games I really like. Sunshine didn't really do it for me. 3D Land was interesting. 3D World was a little too messy with the multiplayer stuff. It wasn't required, but I felt like the game really... It shined for that in some ways, but it also didn't succeed in that way. But if you talk about multiplayer with this game as well, Cappy is an autonomous being. Like, you don't have to just be the second player flicking the controller and that's it. You can separate from Mario's head and go and do your own shit and troll Mario if you want to as well.
I mean, the gameplay conceit of taking over other creatures alone is enough that makes this game fun, even outside of the level design. I mean, they're showing in the Wooded Kingdom. I don't even know what they are. Those sprouts that those seeds that sprout the legs. They're so fun to use.
They're called uproots.
And then those caterpillars in the Lost Kingdom that you
Those
get
are
to
yeah,
stretch.
those are really
They're
good.
so fun to use. And like Rob, you had said this is the first time in a while you've played a platforming game where like you never felt like the game was working against you. Like you said, like
Yeah,
it gave you
precision.
such good confidence in your precision.
Oh, for
Kick
sure.
the ball.
Yeah, like there was one moment where I think it was in the Luncheon Kingdom where like, oh yeah, this is us doing the multiplayer. I actually, people were kind of ragging on this. I thought the 2-player to be pretty fun.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how long. I mean, I feel like I'd have to play more, but like for what it is and what it could have been, like it could have been just like a tacked on, like, here, press A and you can like launch Cappy and that's all you do as a second player. Like you have a lot of control. And I think if you worked really well with someone, like you could do some moves that like I think were not.
Oh, I gotta get that.
You weren't able to in like by yourself, right? Like you could be multitasking at the same time. Like I can be like getting coins as Peter's like jumping around, stomping on Goombas or something like that. It was neat to see those work.
Stacking Goombas is so fun.
Yeah.
The game feels great.
Yeah, but I was say is there was a moment where like so many platforming games where there is a fear, right? Like when you're dealing with ultra precise platforms that you're trying to jump on and land, sometimes there are just these moments in games where it's like, you know, the controller or the movement is ultra sensitive, and you have that like second guess and you fall off. There are times where like, you know, platforms raising and lowering, where like when lowered, the area of that I can step on is ultra small. Like I feel like any other game I would have like seen that and be like, no, I'm gonna wait like that 2-3 seconds before I jump. But like this game, it was like, no, I can totally nail it. And that happened like time and time again, where I was doing like pretty what felt risky moves, but just fully aware that I can do anything. Like it is so natural and seamless, like controlling Mario.
It's also like one of the happiest games I've ever seen.
That does fit. Like it's like Enigma Theory on in the Twitch chat was saying, yeah, the difficulty isn't in the platforming. It's not the point of the game. It's all about finding all these collectibles and exploring. And that's, if you want to consider it that difficult, that's how it fits into this game. And like you were just saying, that fits. I don't think very, very brutal platforming would fit within what this game is going for.
Well, the sections they add in feel good because they are sort of some of the only distinct levels where like you enter a pipe or a door and you end up in a different place. You're not really on the map of the open world anymore. So it segments those sections from the main game. And I think it works, especially because they tend to come after you've beaten the story the first time. Well, not the first time. You beat the first major storyline before moving on to what's left, if you will.
Also, this scene is a pretty good example of how this game is so freaking strange.
It's super weird.
Donk City. So I've
laughed.
been there now.
I laughed so hard at this scene where you're just seeing sheeple just going from one door to the next. Like, what are they doing? Is there like a meat factory they're like falling into?
Like how it's all inside of a building too.
There is a moon factory in this town.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
just
right.
want to take those moons.
Yeah.
This is the first thing they showed off, right? That you actually go to like a real world, not just the Mushroom Kingdom.
Yeah, but sorry, I'm just realizing the moon factory establishes why you can just buy moons at the store.
Oh my god.
There we go.
Shit.
You're
Makes
totally
sense
right.
now.
Lore busted. Or no, lore confirmed. I don't know.
Myth busted.
Nice.
I
All right,
think-
anyway. Sorry, Jake, what?
I was just gonna say one of the most satisfying like possessions that I've found, or it's pretty obvious you'll come across it, but that woodpecker.
Yep.
That like
Yeah.
stick in, and then because I love that mechanic of like
totally.
flicking the stick,
His
and then
name
when
is
you
Pokio or something
when you
like that.
combine that, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the same goes for the Metro Kingdom, New Donk City. Just like the verticality of all the buildings and all those poles.
Yep.
There's such joy in like, you know, I think they're called pylons, or the spark pylons, where you're zipping around, you're in midair, flinging to a pole, flicking up, chasing a rabbit. Like, it's so rewarding just to like control Mario and just run around that game. Like, you get so distracted. It's great.
It does a really good job of distilling, I think, I don't want to say what makes video games great as a whole, but it really does sort of give you a game that controls really well, makes you happy to be in its world, presents challenges, but then doesn't actually punish you for going out of your comfort zone trying to get them.